Okay, let's choose up. I'll take Jamal and Tutal. You can have Chubbs and Skippy. Let's go. My ball.
Okay. But you got skins.
Not a good negotiator? You don't have to be a good negotiator at McCarthy Chevrolet. McCarthy guarantees the lowest prices on a new Chevy or we'll pay you $10,000. We guarantee there's no need to shop anyplace else. McCarthy Chevrolet, I-35 and Santa Fe, Olathe.
Welcome to Hour 2 of the Midwest #1 weekly motorsports show, Track Talk, on the RacinBoys Broadcasting Network. Brought to you by McCarthy Chevrolet. Once again, here's Scott Traylor and Kirk Elliott.
Welcome back. Track Talk here on RacinBoys Radio. Scott, Kirk, Todd now. Hour number 2, always on RacinBoys.com. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us here on the internet, and we tried to do a little reboot there, guys. We're trying to fix whatever buffering problems we're having. We have called our internet provider, which we've never been really happy with. Well, their name will go nameless here at RacinBoys.com.
That is the root of the problem.
That is the root of the problem, and I'll just say this. It's not Time Warner Cable. So we'll just put that out there. Big supporters of Time Warner Cable and Metro Sports. You know that we're over there, and
I'm glad you clarified that.
It's not Time Warner Cable. I'll just say that. We could only dream that we have Time Warner Cable over here at RacinBoys.com, but unfortunately that is not the case.
2 weeks in a row, man.
Oh, my God. I don't get it.
Hey, you know, we come in here this morning, Todd and I checked the internet, and it was great. Everything was great.
Great.
And then about 10 minutes later, once we got on the air, same thing that happened last week.
Yeah.
Down it goes.
Down it goes. Well, let's just hope that it holds up and we can get the entire – and now, listen, just like last week, though, if we were to ever have a problem in weeks in the future, don't forget, no matter what happens here live, we'll be able to put it up delayed.
The entire hour.
Because we're still taping here. So, I mean, Todd's back there making sure we're getting it all down on to Racing Boys. So, for some reason, if we have a problem, go back and check the archives on Racing Boys' YouTube page. Lakeside, the big topic, and you know, we had Nick Newton on hour number 1. We didn't really get a chance to talk about some of the things that I was hopeful to talk about, so we're going to get into them here in hour number 2. Phone lines are open. Todd's got the phone number up there. You see it, 816-833-8553, 816-833-8553. That's a local number for some reason. If you need a toll-free number, try 888-883-6363. Again, 888-883-6363. There's a lot of 8s and a lot of 3s in that second number. 888-883-6363. Know we have people that listen far away that follow us in different parts of the country. So if you are online listening, we'd like to talk to you. And even if you want to call in about maybe one of your regional tracks somewhere else in the country, we would love to do that. A lot of things going on. Don't forget, we've got the Tulsa Shootout and Chili Bowl Nationals coming up. You can hear them both live on RacinBoys.com. We are still doing the Tulsa Shootout. There has been an announcement made that a company's going to be down there doing paid per view, but that doesn't affect us. We're not $45, folks. It's going to be $6.95. And I promise you might not be able to see the broadcast, but we're going to cover it better than anybody. We're going to have pit reporter Scotty Cook's going to be down there. We're going to do a lot of different things. So, again, Tulsa Shootout, that starts 2 weeks from yesterday. Is that correct, Kirk?
Yes.
Tulsa
on the
28th
of December.
Right after Christmas. So order up now. Again, $6.95 for the Tulsa Shootout. And then we will be doing the Chili Bowl Nationals. It'll be our 8th year doing the Chili Bowl Nationals. You can purchase all 5 nights of that for $9.95. We hope that you tune in to our broadcast. Scotty Cook back in the fold. As you know, he was with us at the end of last year on Lucas Oil ASCS National Tour, and he's going to be down there doing the pit reporting for us at the Chili Bowl Nationals. So looking forward to that.
Last year, 193 races over 3 days for the Tulsa Shootout.
How about that?
And the heat races start on Friday night at about 6:30, and they'll run for a while, and then they'll come back all day Saturday, all day Sunday, the features of an evening, and We had a good time down there last year. It was all racing all the time. The thing I liked most about it, there's not much downtime.
Mm-hmm.
They keep rolling them right out, one right after the other, and you know what? It is great racing.
Yeah, well,
It is great racing.
it's going to be good. Don't forget, we're going to have Jim Childers, Justin Zock, Brian Kapinski, Scotty Cook, Kirk Elliott, myself. A lot of special guests, pre-race show, and that's going to be brought to you by Schoenfeld Headers. We're going to have all kinds of the great drivers that have competed down there in years past, and maybe some new drivers this year on the pre-race show. And again, that's thanks to Schoenfeld Headers for being that sponsor. And our broadcast will be brought to you by Lucas Oil Products. Let's get right into it, Kirk. Let's talk about Lakeside Speedway. Last week, as most people know, it's a pretty interesting show. You weren't in the belief that that it was going to sell. We've already touched on that hour number one, but we can touch on it quickly again. My sources, pretty solid. I'm not going to go out on the limb like that very often without having some pretty solid sources. So we pretty much knew last week that this was going to go down. Kirk even knew it, but he wanted to play hardball.
No,
for some
I
reason.
didn't. No, I was.
Kirk,
what I said. Now let's back up here. Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay,
now.
all right.
What I said on the air, I believed it. I was skeptical. We heard all the talk, heard everything that you heard.
How can you believe it
heard
and be
everything that
skeptical
you
at
heard
the same time? Isn't that kind of a...
No, I heard everything you heard, that Mark Olson was looking to sell the racetrack.
And you had also heard that Mike Johnson was the one.
Mike Johnson was in on it, and we heard Clint Boyer. We heard all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But until the deal was actually consummated, and I was skeptical of that because we'd heard the same thing the year before that. We'd heard it in years past, even after the flood of a year ago. Even when Mark Olson came back and said, hey, we're all on for next year, I was even going to go the other way and think, well, we'll see about that. Just everything about Lakeside Speedway going forward, I've been skeptical about because we've heard so much and nothing happened. Even in this deal where you think a deal is imminent, until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. So and my stance was last week is I am going to assume that Mark Olson is still going to be the owner of Lakeside Speedway until something happens that proves different. Well, you know what? Something did happen this week. A deal was agreed to. The track is not officially closed yet on the sale, but that is the big news that I'd been looking for, and it did happen. They'd come to an agreement, and up until that point, I was very skeptical that was going to happen.
Okay.
That's the same thing I said last week.
No, I wish that we had some of the tape we could roll right now.
That's what I said last week.
Did you listen to the segment after we?
Yes.
Did you
I know
watch
what I said.
No.
I didn't watch it back because
Kirk,
I know what I said.
Kirk, you don't always remember what you say, bud. I'm just saying, I've been your partner a long time. You don't always remember.
Well, tell me
what
what I said.
Well, I can't.
I know
verbatim.
what I
I can't do that. But I watched the segment, and I know that you were being a little more of a pessimist last week.
Yeah, I was very skeptical. Again, I'll repeat. What I said last week was I'm going to assume that Mark Olson's still going to be the owner of the racetrack, and I'm going to expect that to happen until something happens that proves it otherwise. Despite all of the talk that we heard out there, and really all what we heard at the car banquet and everywhere else is a lot of talk, but nothing happened. And I was skeptical. I was skeptical last week that it was going to happen, and I'm not going back on what I said last week. But you know what? It did happen. It happened in the middle of this week. A deal was made. Okay. So we move forward.
You're right, Harvey.
And it looks now that we got a new owner.
Harvey Wallbanger says on here, he says, just being corn, Scott. He's just being corn. That's all right. Okay.
So that's what I said last week, and I stand by it.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's get into some of these other issues then. Let's don't forget that it's not just Mike Johnson purchasing the racetrack. Don Mars is a financial investor in this partnership. So let's don't forget that there's two people that are involved in the purchase of the racetrack. Again, the purchase has not been officially finalized. There's paperwork to be done, and when there's paperwork, there's always could be a hiccup. And you ask why we don't have Mike Johnson on. After talking to Mike, this week several times. We thought it would be best to
Now,
wait.
hold on here. You think there's going to be a hiccup in this sale?
Until
Until it's official, right?
Yeah, but you believe in it now, see? So now it's my turn to say, and these are almost verbatim what Mike Johnson said. It's not his until the title's in his hand, until he walks out of there with the title in his hand.
Are you skeptical that that's going to happen?
No, it's just business.
Just business.
I think it's going to happen, but you never know.
You think it's going to happen?
You never know what could come up, what hurdles you could come through when you're trying to do the final papers.
you never know.
There could be, who knows what could happen. Really, you got to make sure that the taxes are right. You got to make sure that tax is paid. You got to. Just a lot of different things, no outstanding debts. The book's got to say what you said they're going to say, that profit margins and this and that. There's a lot of things that have to go on.
So aren't we jumping the gun a little bit by Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series coming out and announcing that Lakeside Speedway is going to be part of the 2013 schedule until the sale is closed? Are we a little bit premature making additions to the schedule?
To be fair, I was a little surprised by that announcement. Yeah. A little surprised by that. You can go into an agreement, but I'm not sure if I'm Lucas Oil Late Model Series if I go ahead and make the announcement until the paperwork's done. But, I'm sure that somebody's talked to Mark as well and says, hey, listen, is this for real? And that kind of was verified what's happening. But, yeah, I think I'd wait till the paperwork is done. You could go ahead and agree on principle.
Just don't make any announcements
Don't make any announcements. Yeah.
Wait till the sale is officially closed and then come out with whatever schedule.
But let's assume the sale is official. Now, let's move into that part.
I'm assuming that now.
I want to know, first of all, per conversation that I heard with Trenton Berry about the wall on the back straightaway. Mike Johnson, now the guys, Trenton Berry and Austin Kruger, they maintain the website for I-35, and they're going to be the ones that take care of the website at Lakeside Speedway. And so they did get a little bit of an interview with Mike Johnson because of that. And, again, we chose not to until the paperwork is final. That's our call on this. Anyway, long story short is that he said that they're going to do something about the wall on the back straightaway.
He had told me that over the phone a couple of days ago.
Let's give him this right here.
Right.
Let's give him that right there.
I will say Mike Johnson told me that himself over the phone the day that this announcement came.
And let me say with that announcement, it's about damn time.
Yeah, that needs to be done, no doubt about it.
Should have been done a long time ago.
They're going to move the wall back some. That's going to reconfigure the wall to a certain degree where that abutment doesn't come up.
Is that what he said? He's going to move it back?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what the right way to handle that. I would think that you would lengthen it down the track a little further.
Well, anything that you can do to take away that abutment.
Yeah.
Up, where you're not coming out of the back straightaway into turn number 3, and that's there.
Well, and that's
any way you can do away with that, however you configure it entering back into the pit area, that is the main goal.
I think what I would do is make the wall go all the way down the back straightaway and put a gate in, is what I would do. I think I'd put a gate in. So and just let him in. And Kirk, you see Kirk Elliott? He just ran out of the studio. He's got a phone call he's got to answer here real quick. That might be the cable provider.
I'm going to have Todd answer that phone. There's a number I didn't recognize, but I'll have Todd.
Could be the cable provider coming over here.
It might be.
So anyway, I don't know. They've got to do something with it, and it's good to hear that Mike Johnson's going to do that. I think that's the biggest news, really, for me.
Oh, it is. No question. Should have been done years ago.
After seeing Bear Stock and how many drivers over the years, I remember the first driver that ever hit that wall was Buzz Caster. That was in 1994, and the reason I remember that, I was right behind him when it happened. And I also was involved in a wreck that Alan Lawrence pounded the end of that wall on the driver's side. I got into the back of him. It was on the start of a race. We're on a big giant group at a feature, and going down the back straightaway, got squeezed out on the back there on the pit road exit.
Wendell Wallace hit that wall.
Wendell Wallace is another one that hit that wall.
His car went straight up.
Yeah.
After that, it's just a wonder he didn't get killed.
Well, so did Buzz Caster's. Yeah. Buzz Caster's went straight up, flipped upside down, and landed between a billboard and the wall, and I'll never forget Buzz come running out of that car because he smelt gas and he thought he was on fire.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great to see that the wall is going to be fixed out there, whatever way they do it. Let's hope it's the safe way, and we won't see any more of those head-on accidents like that because I've said it 1,000 times. It's a miracle nobody has been killed by that wall.
It is amazing.
A miracle. And
just as much a miracle as nobody getting killed in the I-70 Speedway crash video that
I think that's more of a miracle.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely more of a miracle. You know, we've got some video of Buzz Caster somewhere of him hitting that wall the very first time.
Now, one other topic I didn't talk with Mike Johnson about the other day was the rest of the facility. What plans does he have for the rest of the facility? And I probably don't need to get a comment from him to probably guess, and I'm going to predict.
A lot of paint.
I'm going to predict
a lot of weed eating.
That a lot of work is going to be done behind the main grandstand, taking out that old concrete that you drive your car over and cleaning that area up behind the main grandstand.
I don't know why you take that concrete out. Why would you do that?
Smooth it out. Do something with it.
Kirk, that would be
That's rough.
An astronomical amount of money to do that. To break that concrete up and take it out. Spend that money somewhere else now. That's not that big an issue. What they need to do is spend that money in some other area.
I'm not saying he needs to do it right away, but I'm saying in time, a few years down the road, that's going to be looked a lot different in the future than it does right now.
Here's the problem with tearing that. You've got to put something back down. So you have the expense of hauling out, breaking up all that concrete, and who knows how thick it is because the concrete company's been pouring over there, dropping their leftovers for years. I think I
wouldn't have to dig it all up. I mean,
I wouldn't dig any of it up.
Put some kind of layer surface over the top of that, or do something to smooth it out. Do something.
Before I do that, and again, that doesn't bother me. In fact, I think it helps actually when you have rainy weather, even though it's not level. At least it's not grass, and you get stuck in it out there. So I'm not as crazy about thinking about that needs to be fixed. I will tell you. And I know I've seen quite a bit of it on our farm board and just hearing what people are saying. I think the entrance to the racetrack, there needs to be something done there. I think there needs to be some kind of safe or traffic directors out there in and out of the facility and not make it a free-for-all after the races.
I'm worried about somebody getting hit by a train getting out there.
Kirk, it's been there for
Does it seem like
22 years now?
Does it seem like more trains are coming through there than ever before?
No, nobody's been hit by a train out there in 22 years. Well, I take that back. There was a concrete truck one time that was hit out there. The driver lost his life, but never somebody from the race. You got your mic on in there, Todd? There you go.
Nope.
Oh, okay. I'm hearing a little echo in there. Anyway, so I think needs to be. There's no really. I guess you could make another road in to go over the railroad tracks, but I imagine that would be pretty expensive by the time you'd have to put up another crossing device and all that. But I think what could happen is if you bring out some people, direct traffic, make people stop, make people go, and get a flow.
That would help.
That would help a lot.
Yeah, because the biggest complaint that you hear from fans at Lakeside Speedway is after the races are over, how long it takes to get out of there.
Kirk, what do I do at the end of the races every night?
You bolt right out of there as soon as that checkered flag flies, or even before that.
Sometimes if the white flag is flying with the A-mods, I run out the back door.
Of course, you always find a great place to park out there that anybody else would park in your spot, they'd be towed away, but not you.
Well, Todd parks back there. I roll in there. You know me. I don't get there too early. I like to roll in just about the time things are going. Everybody's usually parked by then, and a little creative parking out back never hurts anybody. Anyway, yeah, and the reason I do that is because I don't want to sit there for 40 minutes to get out of the place, and because we got to get up and do this show on Saturday morning. So I think that would be the number one thing I'd like to see done outside of the wall. Race fan WB on here said the wooden bleachers heard a guy fell through them last year. Have you heard that?
The wooden bleachers that are located on the north side of the building?
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard that.
I'm not really sure if that happened or not, but wood needs to be replaced on grandstands. Where'd those grandstands come from?
I don't know. They seat a substantial amount of people, those grandstands.
Did they not come from I-70? Were those not the grandstands that used to be down at the end when they'd open them up for when ASA and when the truck races were coming?
I can't remember.
Because I'm not sure, but I think that's where they came from, because Ted Carlson owned the track at the same time, both tracks at the same time when he brought those over.
Yeah.
I think that's where they came from. I may be wrong on that, but it seems like that's what's coming back to me now. So Clint Brown said they could just lay some gravel over that concrete. They wouldn't have to tear any of it up. There you go.
Smooth it out, for crying out
Something
loud.
like that.
But curb appeal is a big thing with Mike Johnson. And if you go to I-35 Speedway and see the improvements he's made to that racetrack and how well kept that facility is, it's well mowed, well kept, new concrete laid down, is always working on the facility to keep it up. You got to figure that same sort of mentality is going to be coming to Lakeside Speedway.
Clint Brown says on the chat room, saw a tractor trailer stop on the tracks about 5 years ago. The arms started to coming down and hit his trailer. He said he's never seen a truck that size move that quick before. I bet. Well, and I will say that the paint work and a lot of that stuff was done after the flood last year. So a little bit of that has already been taken care of.
And they did a great job.
They did. A lot of weed eating, cleaning
and a lot
up.
of people that helped out with that cleanup at Lakeside did a great job.
But I would imagine there's a lot of things that we don't see that Mike Johnson sees. I'm hearing that there's going to need some work done in the concession area with some concrete down there. I'm sure that they've had some problems from the flood. You think about the wiring that runs around underground and what kind of condition it's in. Did they just patch it to get it through last year? And I got to feel that some of these issues that we're talking about are maybe some of the reasons that Mark Olson decided, I can't fix all this stuff that I know that's going on, like, whatever things. I hear the concrete floor in the concession stand has an issue. We've heard the electricity. I've heard as much as it's going to cost up to $200,000 to fix the electricity and what's going on there. I don't know if they patched it together or not. So, yeah. You know what I'd like to see, Kirk? And I don't think this would happen. I would like to see the A-mods pitted in the infield. I'd like to see a class in the infield so you can have some eye candy, some things to watch. That's the thing I miss the most about the old Lakeside and I-70 Speedway. When I was growing up, when you had downtime, you didn't just sit there and look and talk to your friends and all. Man, you watched what was going on. You could see that Gene Claxton was down there working on his late model, getting it ready, or you were at I-70 Speedway and a couple guys just got into it out on the racetrack, and they're down there and they're pointing their fingers at everybody. The drama that you get that unfolds in front of your eyes sometimes. I miss that about racing. I think that's one of the things that bothers me the most when I travel around the country, that so many racetracks, and I'm sure it's an insurance policy thing, so many racetracks now choose to pit the cars outside of the racetrack. And, Kirk, when you were a kid, didn't you want to watch the cars in the infield?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, up at Adams County Speedway in Corning, Iowa, the pits are in the infield, and that's one of the great things that the fans can see cars being worked on in the infield, a lot of activity going on, and that's part of the show. Now, will that happen at Lakeside Speedway when they pit the modifieds? There's a couple of downsides to that. You've already got part of your pits outside of the racetrack, and just from a logistical standpoint of getting cars on and off the track, just trying to have everything organized, it's very difficult when you got your pits separated like that. And another thing is you don't have the safety fencing around the racetrack.
You'd have to do some things.
Reconstructing of the pits. And a third reason why it's probably not going to happen is when it rains, that infield gets very muddy and very wet. And that would be a problem.
I don't think you could put all the classes down there, but I think you could put a couple down there, maybe one. They do it at Devil's Bowl. On the back, when we go down there for the Lucas Oil ASCS National Sprint Car Tour, they pit the sprint cars out back. And then all the modifieds and whatever late models or whatever they're going to run as the support classes park in the infield. So I think you could do a little bit of both. Too bad you couldn't put them all down there, which we know that's not possible. Then there's not an issue with the wall. Then you just make the wall full length down the back straightaway.
Right.
Forget about it.
But you still wouldn't have enough room for all the haulers that's now in racing. the haulers and all of the other,
Spit
stuff
it out,
that-
Kirk. What?
stuff, I guess, for lack of a better word, that is down in the pit area. I'm not sure you'd have enough room down in the infield for all of that.
Let's see here, Clint Brown. Put
And they're
cars
used to
in the
being on- they're
infield,
used to
and
being
you
on
would
the paved.
also have to spend money to put guardrails up. Yeah, no doubt. There'd have to be some safety
And
issues.
you'd have to pave the pit area because that's what they're used to being. They got concrete slabs down in the pit
you
area
don't
right
have-
now. You'd
no.
have to give them
Just because
at
they're
least
used
that.
to it doesn't mean you have to do it, Kirk.
They
Come
would
on.
expect that.
Kirk, we used to park in the infield at Lakeside. It wasn't.
Don't
at the old Lakeside, it wasn't
Yeah.
paved.
And they rent those areas too, right?
It was-
the pit slabs.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
So you got the same spot every week when you come in.
First come, first service way it was when I was going out there.
That's a revenue stream
I know
for
it
the
is.
promoter.
You want to create some revenue? Put some butts in the seats.
Another revenue stream is the terrace parking around turns 1 and 2, and there's talk that might go to a more layered or tiered parking back there to bring in more people in the terrace parking.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool if they put a couple people up there or a couple tiers up there like the old days. 3 tiers at the old lake. You probably never sat up there at the old Lakeside though, did you?
No, I was never in the tier area at the old Lakeside.
How many
That was
times
cool.
you go to the old Lakeside?
Many times. Matter of fact, I came down when I was still living in Iowa back in the early 80s. I'd come down here. I'd fill in for Jim Welch, who, when he was off doing something else, I'd come in and fill in
Legendary announcer.
as the announcer. And so I came down a lot during the 80s before I even moved down here. And, of course, after I moved here in 86, from 86 through 88, I was out there just about every Friday night. So I spent a lot of time out at the old Lakeside Speedway.
Well, I know that's where I was at every Friday night. In
Yep.
fact, would get there early enough to where sometimes I'd get out there about 4 o'clock before the gate would open. There'd be a long line of people out on Leavenworth Road waiting to get in there so they could get their favorite spot up on the hill and talk about some parties. You know, it's kind of like Vegas. What happened on the tier parking stayed on the tier parking. You know what I'm saying?
And the pits were in the infield. at
And the
old
pits were in the
Lakeside Speedway.
infield, by the way.
Yep.
So, I like the idea of putting another tier up there and cleaning it up. Get those trailers out of there up on the hill. You know, I understand why they do that at a Valley Speedway to pad down the noise.
Right.
I get that. People are kind of hard on Valley about that, but you got to do what you got to do over there to make
That's
sure.
why they're there.
They're there to knock the noise down.
Yep.
And I understand that. Does it look good? Not necessarily. But the fact is that you're not going to be in business if the noise, seeps out all over Valley.
My
Grand
biggest
Valley.
complaint of Valley Speedway is the entrance into the facility. There's no light down there at the entrance and no
Oh,
sign.
they put a little sign up here at the end of the year when I went out there. They had a sign.
They need to
up
put a light up out there.
just a big billboard that says "Turn here."
Yeah.
Maybe would help.
Well, if a security light to lighten that area up when you're driving in after
Do you
dark.
remember for years, Kirk, when you drive down I-70 to go to I-70 Speedway, there was a billboard there, and it was maybe 2 exits back. Maybe it was Bait City. I can't remember. But there was a sign there that said I-70 Speedway for years. I mean, years it was there. And at the top of it had another little some plyboard up there that said next exit. So it must have been right there at the Odessa
I think
exit.
I remember that sign.
In fact, the billboard is still there, and the piece that said next exit is still there up on top of it.
Was that really the next exit?
Yeah. Next
Okay.
exit. It was the next exit. Exit 41. Do I remember it well?
Good old exit 41, I-70 Speedway.
Exit 41. O&M Highway, I believe that is. O&M Highway.
Yeah.
Turn right. You go to Jason Bodenhammer's about 13 miles. Turn left, and then turn right on the outer road, and there you were.
Of course, we didn't need the sign to tell us what exit to turn off. We just knew where it was.
Right, exactly. So, again, we're just kind of brainstorming. We're trying to spend some of Mike Johnson and Don Mars's money a little bit right here this morning, just talking about things that we'd like to see done out at Lakeside Speedway now that Mike Johnson and Don Mars are the owners.
Don Mars, will he still, I guess we'd find out, will he still race
yes,
and be the owner?
He will still race. Yes, sir. I was told that. And per my conversation with Mike Johnson, the understanding is that if he does something that deserves a black flag or get disqualified, he will. And, in that kind
He's
of case.
got to be treated like everybody else.
No, actually, you got to treat him harder than anybody else.
Yeah.
To make sure people realize that that's the case. You know what I mean?
Can't cut him any slack just because he's the owner.
Zero slack when it comes to Don Mars out there. And I believe Mike Johnson's son's going to be driving out there as well. So,
that means that under 16 allowed.
Is his son under 16?
Lakeside Speedway.
How old is his son? Nice.
Is he 14, isn't he?
He is?
Yeah.
He is? I didn't know that. Well, I guess maybe he is an old enough.
Pretty good driver. Won some races in the Grand National Division at I-35 last year.
Don't like that.
At a track where they allowed younger than 16 because Trevor Hunt won up there on an Ironman Challenge as a companion event to a USMTS race up there earlier in the year.
I think
that. What's going to happen is
I don't like it.
I talked to Mike Johnson about this too. You can be allowed. It'll be where under 16 are allowed only if you pass a test that you can prove that you can handle the car.
No, hold on.
Not all drivers under 16 are going to be allowed to run out there.
No, bad idea. Just wait till you're 16. How about that? Wait till you know how to drive a car on the street before you drive a race car, maybe. I'm just saying.
Well, I kind of agree with that assessment. If you can prove you can handle the car, you go through some kind of a test that the owner has of the racetrack, and you pass that test in his eyes.
But how do you do that test racing with other cars? Anybody can drive fast, Kirk.
Yeah.
Anybody can, any decent driver can go out there and make laps with nobody else out there and basically have a little control of the car and look like, okay, he can handle it. It's what a guy does under the pressure of racing with 20 other cars out on the racetrack. That's where I have a problem with it. And to be honest with you, that my biggest problem isn't really about their skill set. My biggest problem is about their body being mature enough to withstand a violent impact. I'm just saying. I'm not going to change my mind.
Go-kart racing's pretty dangerous too, isn't it?
Huh?
Kids racing go-karts, that's dangerous too, is it not?
Have I not said 1,000 times that I'm not letting my kid drive a go-kart? I mean, we support Thunder Lake and John O'Neill. That's their choice. If they want to let their kids drive them and break their neck, that's their choice. That's all right. I'm not doing it. Yeah, it's dangerous. Hell yeah. And it's dangerous to let 16-year-old kids. I mean, do we need to revisit Sedalia this year to give an example of what happens when a kid is in a violent wreck under the age of 16? Do we really? I mean,
talking about Jordan Creason
right?
and his wreck in a sprint car race.
No, I was trying not to mention him by name. Because he is a good kid. I like Jordan Creason. I hated to hear it. Really nice. How could you not like that kid? And his parents are great.
He's doing pretty well, too, by the way.
Oh, I know. He's rebounded. He looked good down at Lucas Oil, and I'm happy for him. But I'm not going to change my mind on how I feel about it. Just because I like somebody and just because, the kid's got talent. I'm not going down that road. I'm not going to waver on that 1 minute.
So anyway, that's another aspect of new ownership at Lakeside Speedway that is different than
we don't know that for a fact,
I
guess. Maybe his kid's going to be 16 by the time he races next year.
No, I talked to Mike Johnson the other day, and these were things he was discussing.
He's going to allow kids under the age of 16.
Well,
track's too big and fast.
No official announcements
The
yet,
track is too big and fast for the young kids. Just too much. All right. Let's talk about again. Let's readdress the sanctioning thing. We talked about it a little bit. I'm in favor of NASCAR. What would you be in favor of, Kirk?
No sanction at all. No sanction.
But the problem with the no sanction is no point fund money. So you get again. I mean, you could have a point.
Why can't the track put up its own point fund money?
You can, but when you sanction with somebody, they put up the point fund money. And we know that Mike's not going to go unsanctioned. We know that. It's most likely it's going to be USRA from everything that he's told us and what I've heard.
All the indications pointing towards yes.
But I would seriously have to consider NASCAR. Again, for the marketing opportunities that comes with it.
I haven't really delved into what NASCAR's done lately. I was pretty familiar with NASCAR when I was working up at Corning many years ago. That's been 10 years ago now, 12 years ago when I finished working at Adams County Speedway in Corning, and NASCAR was still pretty strong back then. I'm not as familiar with their program now as I was, say, 10 years ago. I know the money is not as lucrative as it once was. Whelen is the major sponsor of that series, but at one time, big-time dollars were put up for national championship and regional championship honors. Not so much now, and I'm not sure that NASCAR focuses in on their weekly racing series as much as they used to. They still have it, of course, but I'm not sure they put as much priority on it as they once did.
Kirk, they're saying online that having troubles as well on my computer with Windows 7.
Yeah,
but I have no problems with computers with Windows XP. So just a little information there.
Well, it's still a little bit shaky out
mine
there.
Mine isn't buffering at all right
it's
here.
Mine's starting to
a
buffer
little
right
bit,
now.
I guess it is.
The problem with that is the upload and download stream that we're getting from our cable provider is
not enough.
Is up and down. Well, it's very sporadic here this morning. It was that way last week, and I'm wondering if it's
I'm going to tell you what
to be
I'm going
that
to tell
way.
you
I
what
don't
the
know what's
problem.
going
No,
on.
I'm going to tell you the problem. It's a moisture problem. It rained its ass off last night at my house.
But for 3 or 4 years, we didn't have any problem at all with our internet provider, and here all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks,
we've had problems
rain or
with
no rain, we haven't had that kind of a problem.
For years, I don't know about that. We've had some issues, hit and miss once in a while. Anyway, let's get back and stay with the subject at hand here. Don't forget, we got a poll question up on RacinBoys, and if you're on the chat room, you're looking right now at the chat room, just look to the right. You'll see where it says question of the week. Vote right now. Let's get some people to vote that are listening to the show. Let's get a real feel of what's going on here. Only 8 people. We just put this up late last night. So here's the question. Now that Lakeside is being sold, what sanction should run weekly racing be under? We have up there USRA, IMCA, NASCAR, and no sanction. Kirk, your choice has 0 votes right now. Of course it does, Mr.
9%.
Minority.
No, it says 1 vote on there.
Oh well,
that's not me either. I didn't.
Maybe I need to freshen mine up because mine has 0 on there. Let me freshen this.
It says 1 vote NASCAR. We just put this thing up there. We only got 11 votes so far, but
okay, yeah, unsanctioned.
That
1
wasn't
vote.
me. That's not my vote.
Was that Kirk?
No, it wasn't Kirk. So right now, USRA is leading with 64% with 7 votes. IMCA second with 2 votes. NASCAR third with 1 vote and 1 vote. Rolling in tied with NASCAR is no sanction. I think having a sanction makes sense, and I don't have anything against USRA. A lot of people are.
That's what's going to be.
Oh yeah.
But
I would like to see NASCAR. If I had my choice, I'd be going NASCAR.
USRA's kind of taken over in this area. A lot of tracks with USRA sanctions now. Valley's got
but
it.
the problem is if I go down the street to Joe Blow's print shop and I'm trying to get a sponsorship and I go in there and I say, hey, we'll be running a modified out there at Lakeside Speedway. We're going to be running USRA. What's that?
But you say NASCAR.
But when
We're
I go
running
in,
NASCAR.
I'm running locally here in NASCAR. Yeah. You are? Really? Where's that at? I didn't know they had a weekly NASCAR track here. Do you think there's any correlation to fans that maybe put more stock into it being NASCAR? As somebody that, say for an example, listens to Sports Radio 810 on Saturday mornings, we know a lot of people just listen to 810 all the time. They never turn the radio off. So let's take the typical 810 fan that never has been to a race, not a really, no idea what goes on grassroots racing, but might be a fringe NASCAR fan, not even a hardcore NASCAR fan. Somebody's just a fringe fan. You know, outside, I kind of go over there and look once in a while and see what's going on. I paid a little bit of attention to it, not that much, but I watch NASCAR. You think that when they hear that on Saturday mornings, NASCAR Weekly Racing Series track, Lakeside Speedway tonight, we're going to be out there, and we're on with Kevin Kiesman and all that. Do you think that maybe that fringe fan or that fan that follows maybe a little bit of NASCAR, never been to a local race, that entices them to come out to the racetrack a little bit more?
Oh, there's no question about it. I think it's a big factor. I know when I was involved in it, helping out at Adams County Speedway in Corning many years ago, the marketing aspects of NASCAR was just huge, and I think it was a very big part of the growth of what we had going on up there.
The heyday and grassroots racing in this area is when NASCAR was the sanctioning body.
Yeah, I mean, it just brought a lot of publicity and a lot of high profile to the weekly racing program. At least back in those days it did. And I think a lot of that had to do with what NASCAR did to help promote. I don't think they promote it nearly as much as they used to.
But let me ask you this. If you were to go to a NASCAR weekly racing series, say Lakeside Speedway, let's stay on that. Lakeside Speedway goes to a NASCAR weekly racing series. You've got an ISCS track 5.5 miles away. Mm-hmm. Don't you think for a second that ISC and Kansas Speedway will work with you more? Not saying they don't work with them now, because we know that Kansas Speedway is sensitive to what goes on down at Lakeside, and they think about their racing partner in the community when they do things. We know that for a fact.
Sure.
But don't you think that would elevate that a little bit? Don't you think there'd be even more cross-promoting if we had a NASCAR Weekly Racing Series track just down the road?
I don't think there's any question about that. And especially now that you got 2 NASCAR weekends at Kansas Speedway, in conjunction with whatever's going on just right up the road at Lakeside Speedway, you have to know that if they were a NASCAR-sanctioned track, that you would get visits from Brian France and Mike Helton and other NASCAR officials to NASCAR at Lakeside Speedway if it were under the NASCAR banner. Don't you think that might happen?
We'll say again now.
They would get visits to the track during the NASCAR Cup weekends by some of the big officials of NASCAR. Maybe Brian France might pay a visit up to Lakeside Speedway if he happens to be in town.
Or better yet, Sprint Cup star Clint Boyer or any one of the NASCAR drivers doing a promo to support your NASCAR Weekly Racing Series track like Lakeside Speedway. I'm just telling you, there's too many pros and too many ways to create interest. I know
it does carry a lot of value with NASCAR in town, just down at Kansas Speedway, which I don't think they were under the NASCAR banner before Kansas Speedway was built, were they? Had they already left? I can't remember when the last year of NASCAR was at Lakeside Speedway, but was it before? Did they leave before Kansas Speedway was built? I can't remember.
No, they were there because Mark Olson was NASCAR Weekly Racing Series, and that was he purchased the track in 2001.
Right.
So they were
right. So they were there at least 2 or 3 years anyway.
Right.
They haven't been NASCAR for a long time.
Long time. It's been a long time. And again, this is a generic user's name, and I'd rather you guys put your name up there so I can talk to you. But it says, I don't think it matters with sponsorship if a track is NASCAR sanctioned or not. It's all about fan count and brand awareness. Duh.
But
that's what we're talking
when you're
about.
Going out selling sponsorships, saying NASCAR is a pretty valuable brand to go out there and help sell sponsorships.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I think it does put butts in the seats. The biggest subject that we've had here for I don't know how long is how do we get new fans? How do we find people that have not been interested in what's going on at the local racing scene? How do we get those people interested in our sport? You got to dangle that NASCAR carrot out in front of them. You got to say, hey, Kirk, how many NASCAR fans do you know that don't go to weekly racing? A lot.
Sure.
A lot.
But would they go just because you put NASCAR on there?
I think there's a better chance of them going.
Don't you think Lakeside Speedway's built up enough of an awareness and reputation over the years that would carry even forward to a new ownership, that really wouldn't have that much of an impact?
All I can go by is what the attendance was at the end of last year.
Well, they're at a point now to where
current events is what
things have to be rebuilt somewhat.
Kirk, we cannot go back to 3 or 4 years ago and what Lakeside was.
Yeah.
Because let's be fair, at the end of this year, it was a shell of itself. I'm just going to say, it was a shell of itself. The crowds were no bigger than it was when it was pavement at the end of this year.
It really tailed off.
Listen, we've dissected this 1,000 times. There's a lot of reasons this could have happened. The flood could have taken the momentum away.
Live TV coverage.
the economy. Just there's a lot of things, and probably all of them come into play a little bit.
It was hot.
Hot. You're right, Todd. It was hot out
The
there.
hot weather really had an impact. Not just at that racetrack, but a lot of racetracks around the area.
And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the registration out at Lakeside this year around $100? And that money, again, we from talking to drivers, assumed that money was going to go towards the point fund, and that didn't happen. Now they and again, let's be clear, it was never written anywhere that was going to happen. The drivers just assumed that was going to happen, and it didn't. Wouldn't you assume that the price of NASCAR, being a member of NASCAR, is going to be about the same money? Here's the difference. I think people worry about the cost of what it costs for your crew members, for their license to get in. And I don't know if they've changed that or if they've.
I don't know what NASCAR's licensing is right now. It used to be fairly expensive to purchase a NASCAR license.
I know it. But
Even
if I remember right,
just it's coming into the pits.
Maybe somebody can tell me on the chat room that knows what it cost to register your car last year at Lakeside Speedway, because I'm not sure. Maybe it's on their website, Kirk. Maybe you can look that up. See what that is. Hollywood Bob says attendance was down at every track last year.
Yep.
No. Maybe the tracks you're going to, but I've been across the country. I went to probably 50 different tracks this year. Now, I'm just speaking when it comes to the ASCS National Tour. Attendance was way up. But that is a touring series.
You got touring, sir. We're talking about weekly racing in and around the Kansas City area.
It was by far, in the last 4 years that I've been out on the National Tour, by far the best year attendance-wise. By far the best.
But that's hard to compare a weekly or a touring series to a weekly racing program.
No, I agree. Now, granted, there was a couple tracks that it was down, and we'll probably won't go back to those tracks this year. Chatham, Louisiana was one of them I can think of off the top of my head. Jetmore, we'll probably go back out there because that's the Steve King Memorial Race. So I would say we'll probably go back there regardless. I don't know. Just these are my ideas. I just like to see NASCAR. I raced under the NASCAR Weekly Racing Series banner myself for 10 or so years, and I loved it. So, but USRA, Todd Staley doing a great job, and if you're not going to do NASCAR, it's a no-brainer to do the USRA, I think. IMCA is not going to work at Lakeside Speedway. Just will not work. I don't think that.
No.
I don't think people. First of all, I don't think if you're going to have a true IMCA motor in your modified, I think you'd be blowing up a lot of motors.
Well, Mike Johnson said that. Just for the reasons that you mentioned, that's not an IMCA racetrack. I think the size of the racetrack would not lend itself to IMCA like it does up to I-35. And he mentioned that IMCA had somewhat of a tradition at I-35 before. Back in the days when Larry Castor ran I-35 Speedway, they had IMCA up there, so it had a history of IMCA.
Mm-hmm.
Would not work at Lakeside Speedway for a number of factors that he pointed out, and I think he's right about that. So, No, don't expect IMCA racing at Lakeside Speedway.
Hollywood Bob had to throw in, well, Scott, at even the NASCAR shows this year, a lot of empty seats. $90 tickets, and you got to travel to get there. The cost of fuel dictated that.
Here are the registration prices out at Lakeside Speedway. $100 for modified, $75 for Grand National, $50 for factory stock, and a B-Mod's $50.
Pit pass is how much?
Pit crew, $50.
See, so there's not much difference in the grand scheme of things. And that was non-sanctioned.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, none of that money went to the drivers. Just saying.
Shouldn't a point fund be a separate account? That
put it in an escrow, maybe some kind of escrow
just
where you
separate.
Can't touch it.
Yeah, I mean all that. When you go to deposit the license money, that just goes into that account and it's there. It's not touched. You can't dip into it for paying expenses or anything else. That's what that money's there for. It's
Yeah.
a separate account. At the end of the year, you take it and you distribute it to the drivers.
No, I agree.
It's that simple.
That's the way it should be. But again, NASCAR tracks, I think, truthfully, what's biggest problem with NASCAR, it's oversaturated on television too. Too much coverage. I think that hurts.
Too many Saturday night races.
Saturday night races hurts local racing. You know, you're going to see more of that, believe me. You're going to see more of that in the future.
Kansas Speedway's spring race eventually is going to be on a Saturday night at some point.
Let's see. You can give a track any sanction you want, but you must get the kids to want to come out, and they don't know about sanctioning bodies, school, churches, and the like, that we need to target kids. Yeah, I get that. I get your point. We need to target
That's
kids.
the biggest worry that I have about racing going
The
forward.
future.
Is we're not only getting young kids interested to even come out to the racetrack, but kids that will have the wherewithal to have a race car, work on it, race it, and go into the field. How many of the old style racers are we going to continue to have? How many of the people that can actually know how to work on the cars? You know, you don't even have auto mechanics classes in high school, a lot of these high schools anymore. And so I'm worried about, there's so many things for kids to do that how many of them are, like when you and I grew up, that you worked on your own stuff and you learned how to be a mechanic.
Well,
you can't do that.
Cars aren't. They
As
make
much
it,
as you
they,
used to.
They make it to where you can't work on cars anymore.
Yeah.
You can't adjust the carburetor, and
So where are we going to get our racers going forward?
I don't know. I don't know.
The people like Scotty Martin, who
Nick
Newton, these guys go out there and build their own stuff, build their cars from the ground up.
Right.
They at least have the capability of doing that.
Right. No, I agree with
That's
that.
going to be fewer and farther between as we march forward here.
All right, here's one I want to put out there. Chat room folks, light it up. I want you to see what you say right here. What about the staff? They've had the same competition director and same group of officials out there, for 15 years now, even back when it was pavement, maybe. When JD come in, see, he raced in 94, so I know he wasn't doing it that year. Somewhere after 94, he's been involved with that. Some people really like JD, some people don't.
And JD and Diana both raced, did they not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She drove.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure did.
On the pavement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what Mike Johnson's going to do. My guess is Karen Darling is going to. She worked with Mike
absolutely.
up at I-35 Speedway, was his competition director up there. Karen Darling, I would guess. I haven't talked to Karen, but my guess is that she'll have a role to play out there.
Love to see Karen Darling be the competition director at Lakeside. Would love it. I think she would. Here's the thing I like about Karen. She's going to treat everybody the same. No hidden agendas. And that's what we need up there. Somebody that doesn't have a personal agenda or have a swayed opinion about somebody. We need somebody like Tommy Estes for Lakeside. Now, you're not going to get Tommy Estes, obviously, because he runs Dodge City Raceway Park. But my point is that mentality of a Tommy Estes. The one thing we loved about Tommy Estes, it didn't matter if you were Tony Stewart or if you were Sean Peterson out on the national tour. I'm just trying to give you an example of difference in drivers, the quality of talent. Didn't matter. If Tony Stewart did something that was bonehead, Tommy Estes would DQ him no matter what. Didn't matter. Or if his motor or something would have been over, which it wasn't, I'm just saying it hypothetically. If his front wing was pushed too far forward or if his motor didn't pump right or something, it didn't matter. That person would be disqualified. It didn't matter if you were Jason Johnson. It didn't matter if you were Shane Stewart. It didn't matter who you were. You were going to get the same treatment no matter what.
Well, everybody respected Tommy Estes out on that ASCS tour. He was well respected because he was honest, forthright, and a man of integrity. That's Tommy Estes.
And that's what we
that
need.
type of a person.
That's what we need at Lakeside.
Where there's no question about favoritism or anything else.
Anything.
You know the guy's a man of his word and backs it up.
There's not many like Tommy Estes.
No, there's
I'm just going to say. But if
No.
we had anybody in position right here that would be close to a Tommy Estes type mentality, Karen Darling.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe for a second that Karen Darling would play favoritism to anybody.
No, she doesn't care who wins. Pretty certain of that.
I mean, we all have drivers that we're friends with and maybe closer friends than others. So, that is a tough position to be in.
It's easy to get swayed because it's, you become friends with people. Are you out there with
Sure,
every week?
absolutely.
It's hard not to become friends with them. And when something happens to a friend, your natural instinct is to help them out. You don't you want to be fair, but sometimes it's hard to be. Hey, he's a friend of mine. I gotta,
Right.
and you cut him some more slack than you would somebody else. You really don't notice it so much. But to people on the outside, that's what you're doing. You're showing favoritism when you really didn't mean to.
To be fair, she got that mentality. She's a good person, first of all. But
Yes.
part of that came from Earl Walls. Earl Walls treated everybody the same.
Yeah.
Love him or hate him, God bless him.
He didn't care who won.
He didn't care who you were. Everybody got the same treatment. So she was in that environment for a long time. And I think she would be awesome as the competition director out at Lakeside
Tech
Speedway.
officials are very hard to find now.
Speaking of Karen Darling, if I was going to have a tech official, you know where I'm going with this, don't you?
Her husband, Rick Darling.
Rick Darling.
Right.
Rick Darling would
I don't think he wants to do it.
No, Rick come by here earlier this week. He was in the neighborhood, had some business in Kansas City, and he stopped by to say hi. And I
don't
said,
want that
I
job.
said
You don't
that
want
to,
that job.
I said, Rick, you ought to be the competition. Oh, I don't want that. I said, how many motors you got running out there? He said, I don't have any. Perfect. You're the guy. I'm gonna tell you right now, Rick Darling would be good at teching motors.
Well, yeah, because he knows what
He
he's
knows
doing.
what the hell he's doing.
He knows what's going on.
Rick Darling would.
Yeah.
Here's the combination: the competition director works with the head tech official. Oh, and by the way, they save a little gas riding to work together. How about that?
Yep.
Huh?
Absolutely. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Hollywood Bob says, Karen Darling, it's her way or the highway. I like that. See, I like that.
She don't put up a lot of stuff,
I just think it would be, listen, I just don't want to feel the same when I go to Lakeside. I want to feel like it's new when I go there. You know what I mean? Don't you, Kirk? Don't you want to have a new sense of rejuvenation, be rejuvenated or something, huh? When you go back out there?
I think so.
Don't you think it's important to just
I think it will be.
clean the slate as much as possible?
Well, we'll see. Sometimes it's easier said than done. I mean, it's hard to find good race officials. I mean, I think he's going to have to lean on some people that are already there through any kind of a transition. I would expect him to retain a good number of the officials out at Lakeside Speedway, at least in the short term.
No, you got time to get new ones in there. Problem is change is good sometimes. And again, people could say, oh, well, you don't like J.D. Green. No, not really. But that's not my reason behind it. Let's face it.
Yes, it is.
No.
Oh, come on.
No, it isn't. No, it really has nothing to do with it. If, I don't have to like somebody to recognize they're good at their job. And I will say that J.D. Green has done a good job out there, but I believe that sometimes that he can be swayed a little bit. That's just my opinion. And listen, he's no different than other people. I've seen it at racetracks all over the country where competition directors can be swayed. He's no different than a lot of them that are out there. So don't. What I'm trying to tell you, don't take that as that I'm just pointing my finger at one person. This happens a lot of places. Because, again, it's hard to find the right person to do the job sometimes.
One thing we know that'll be a big change is the owner will show up at the drivers' meetings now, be walking through the pits and be at the drivers' meetings. at Lakeside, the owner.
Kirk, you brought it up, so I'm going to go with it. I think the number one complaint about Mark Olson being the owner of Lakeside Speedway is that he wasn't attached to the racers. He was the man behind the curtain type of guy.
Well, he was up in the building. Didn't come down into the pit area a lot.
You know, that was the one thing I loved about Larry Castor. You know it?
Yeah.
He knew everybody by name. And I got a feeling that Mike Johnson's going to be that guy. He's going to go down and thank people in the pits.
He will
for
be.
being
That's one thing. That's
he
why
does
I brought
it at
up.
I-35.
That's why I brought it up,
Right.
because at I-35 Speedway, Mike Johnson is as visible a track owner as you'll ever find. He's all over the place. He's in the grandstands. He's in the pits. He's everywhere. And he thanks these drivers for coming.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for coming out. And, that's a big thing. I think you got to be visible. You got to be there to answer questions.
Right.
Anybody who's got a problem, you need to be there to, help them out. Hey, before we go, I just wanted to mention they announced the 2013 Carb Hall of Fame inductees.
Yeah.
It's going to be on March the 2nd. Be happy to MC that again this next year.
How many
I
years
think you're
have
going to probably be out on the road, so you won't be there.
Unfortunately,
that
what weekend is that?
night. March 2nd, which
I
is
will
a
be
Saturday
in Yuma,
night.
Arizona that weekend.
Gladstone Community Center. And congratulations to these new inductees: Al Burke Sr., Diana Green, Leroy Holler Jr., Linda Lose, Bob Kosiski, Herschel Wagner, Terry Wantland,
Oh,
and
wow.
Cliff
Great.
Woody Woodward. So congratulations to
Yeah.
all of those new 8 members of the 2013
Several
Carb Hall of
well-deserving
Fame.
inductees right there, no doubt. All right. Well, we're giving a little bonus coverage because we went on at what was that?
Oh, that was me plugging in a deal here.
Just not prepared there, were you, bud?
No.
I got to answer this one question. I was wondering who will tech. I like Lopez, but you can't have a tech official that has built illegal carburetors for drivers in the past. I don't know what you're talking about.
Bobby
there.
Lopez?
Yeah, I like Bobby Lopez. He's one of the guys I'd want to keep on board. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, I was saying tech officials are hard to find.
Right.
Good tech officials, I mean, they're very difficult to find and retain.
I think Jim Darling's perfect for it. And he's cringing.
Rick Darling? Yeah.
Oh, what'd I say?
Did you say Jim or Rick?
Jim Darling. Oh, boy, I haven't said that one in a long
Jim.
time. You know,
Rick Darling.
you know who Jim Darling is, Kirk? Do you even know who that is?
No.
See, you're not really from Kansas City, so you don't remember Jim Darling. Figure 8 champion at Riverside Stadium.
Really?
Jim Darling. Yeah. Jim Darling, Snail, Randy Grimmett. Man, those were the days. Figure 8 at Riverside.
Figure 8 racing. They didn't have much figure 8 racing where I come from. Matter of fact, they didn't have any figure 8 racing.
Well, all
Where
I
I
know
grew up.
is that that was the stuff. I'll just put it that way. Back in the day, everybody, if you had a bad night and your car got tore up a little bit, sometimes you would see guys take their late model out, or their street stock, or their modified, and they'd go out there and run it. They'd try to stay out of trouble, so they didn't tear their stuff up. But they would think, oh man, I could make another $100 if I go out there tonight. I mean, it happened a lot. You'd see people take their car they raced that night that normally didn't run the figure 8. You had your group of, Roger and Emmett and I said Emmett, Roger and Randy Grimmett and Jim Darling and all those guys. You had those regulars that were there all the time.
Did you go figure 8
No,
racing?
I never figure 8. No,
You never did?
I never did it. I couldn't afford to tear up my stuff because you'd go out there. There's a chance, and they made it like a sippy hole that you had to go through at Riverside. Oh yeah, it's crazy stuff, man. Back
Riverside Stadium, man.
the best racetrack ever in Kansas City in my eyes. That's just me talking. All right, well, listen, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Get on RacinBoys forum board, and Kirk, once you start it, you can't stop it. But
We're in for it now.
yeah, you're all in at that point. Just check out our forum board. A lot of fodder going on right there about what's happening at Lakeside and We've made some changes. We're constantly tweaking the form board, getting some things, some requests in there. I might not respond to everybody that sends in a request to some things they'd like to see on the form board, but we're taking it to our IT guys, and they've been making those adjustments. So get on there, re-register. People are registering right and left because of the Chili Bowl and the Tulsa Shootout broadcast as well. So get on there. It's real easy. It only takes a minute to do. And show your support on the form board.
Can you believe 2 weeks from today we're going to be doing – racing's going to be going on.
My goodness. Yeah, can't believe it. All right, thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Again, today's show has been brought to you by McCarthy Chevrolet. Check them out at kccars.com. Don't forget McCarthy Toyota in Sedalia now. For Todd Surprise, Kirk Elliott, I'm Scott Traylor. We'll see you next week right here on Track Talk.